Hi, I'm Courtney Carver, and I'm about to have a productive conversation with Mike Vardy.
Welcome to A Productive Conversation. I'm Mike Vardy, and I am bringing another Flashback Friday episode for you today, and it features my good friend, Courtney Carver. Now, Courtney has been blogging for, as you'll hear, 15 years, on her site, Be More with Less. We are revisiting a conversation from March of 2020 called Doing Project 333, which is based on her previous book. But before we get into that conversation, Courtney and I will talk about her new book called Gentle. And if you're listening to this as this episode drops, you can still pre-order it, and it's coming out in just a couple of days. Courtney is a fantastic writer. She's very thoughtful, insightful, and gentle in her approach. And I can't say enough good things about the kind of work that she's doing out there with her previous book, Soulful Simplicity, Project 333, and now Gentle. So we had a chance to catch up for a few minutes off the top of the program here just to talk about her body of work, where things have headed, what she's hoping to share in Gentle. We talk about spatial awareness and time and space, lots of really interesting things in the first part of the conversation. And then we dovetail into the conversation that we had in March of 2020 when we talk about Project 333. And I've been following that for years now. Even back then when we talked about it, I had started. And I maintain it. As a matter of fact, I think as we're recording this, I'm in the tail end of my winter Project 333 and getting ready to get into the spring change as well. So if you've not listened to that episode before or her previous appearances, you can find that in the show notes. We're going to link to her Soulful Simplicity appearance. But without further ado, let's get to this conversation with my good friend, Courtney Carver. We'll get a quick update for her recorded just a week ago. And then into the previous conversation, this Flashback Friday episode from March of 2020. So without further ado, here we go. Courtney, thanks so much for returning to the podcast for a third time. You're up there with like the returning guests to the show. And we're at like almost 600 episodes as we do this. So there's been a lot of guests over the year. I think you're like in the top 5 of people who've been on the show the most.
Wow, the top 5. Okay, I'll take it.
So yes, it has been, the conversation that people are going to hear in just a few minutes is our conversation around Project 333, so there's actionable stuff that, and I still practice that, which is fantastic. Like I still do. There's nuance to it as you discuss in the book, but you've got another book that's coming out. Normally when I do these update interviews, I talk about like what's been going on, and some of it is there's, some people have just been kind of working on the same stuff they've been working on, sharing the same book. But as we are releasing this episode, you're like a couple days away from the new book, Gentle, Rest More, Stress Less, and Live the Life You Actually Want. And I remember when you were talking about this book, like we're friends, we've talked, like, what was the impetus behind you putting this book out into the world? Especially right now, because we're in a world that I think Gentle is something we could all use a little bit more of.
Well, I appreciate that. And I completely agree. I started thinking about this book. I actually looked back at some of my notes and emails that I had sent to find out when exactly. And it was March 2022. I woke up at 3 a.m. and the idea for the book really just spilled out. The name, not the subtitle in full, but the overall structure of the book, like it was there. And the next day I sent out a quick proposal to my agent, and she really enjoyed it. And then I got really excited about it. And then it took another little long while to actually do a full proposal and sell the book. And here we are almost 3 years later. So I had no idea where we would be in space and time today. But I know, like, just looking back throughout my entire life, there have always been like overwhelming times and exhaustion and stress, not just for me, but for people I care about and people I know. And I know that this is a book that people can probably always use.
Whenever some someone, and we'll talk about authors in particular, they're releasing books, and I'm not saying you release them at a breakneck pace at all, but there are some that do, right? There's some that you get them like every 2 years or and they seem somewhat connected, but not quite. Like it's almost like they are, and some authors are definitely like they will write about very different things every time they write because they're authors. But there's some that are, they want to connect the work. And I want to ask you about the body of work that you've had in terms of your writing. Like, is this the natural progression that you kind of figured would happen? Like, I'm always fascinated by watching like someone like Chris Guillebeau and his body of work, or Todd Henry, or Gretchen Rubin. And when you see what happens, like, how did they get there from here? So I'm wondering if you've taken some time to kind of connect the dots and see, is it parallel, sequential? Like when you're thinking about your body of work over the years, and in particular, since our last conversation from Project 333 to now, like, are there any things that come to mind that make you go, oh, that's where this came from, or "Oh, that's where I was going," or how in the world did I get here?
Well, when I think about my body of work, of course, the 3 books come to mind, but also I've been blogging consistently for 15 years. Not a week has gone by that I haven't published something on my blog about my simplicity journey, about protecting your peace, about taking care of yourself, my health journey. So after this idea came up, I was really curious and I went to my blog and I searched the word gentle. And it is from the beginning until today, just all over the place. Like I just talk about it all the time. So it's always been this underlying message in this blog about simplifying your life. And with Soulful Simplicity, my first book, that was more memoirish probably than any of the other books, although they all have some story involved. And then Project 333 came from the Project 333 challenge, but it also came from an invitation from the publisher of my first book, who said, because I wrote a chapter in that first book about Project 333 and they wanted a whole book about it. So that was a very natural next step. And then this one felt very different when it came up as a concept, but actually it's just been living inside me and throughout my blog in one way or another forever.
When we talk about the idea of gentle, especially in relation to Project 333, which is very much, there's a systemization approach to it. There's quantity right there, 333. Like I've always felt that, especially when you talk about simplicity in the writing that you do, very qualitative stuff, very much, the qualitative improvements, even the subtitle of your book, it's offering that. And I find, especially in the work that I do, that there's a slant towards quantity. Well, how much? What's this look like? Minimalism in and of itself has that idea of, well, minimal, like less. And we know be more with less, but there's broad strokes there. When someone comes to approach your work now, and especially this new book, how do they flip the switch from focusing on that quantity aspect that is so kind of easy to wrap your head around with the qualitative stuff, the efforts, the ideas, the insights that you share in your work? How can they tap into that in a simpler way, considering the noise that's going on around us in the world, and not just the noise that's going around in the world, but so many other opportunities out there to say, oh, well, I'm going to do this in a very quantitative way. How do you kind of help someone with that qualitative aspect?
It's been a really natural progression for me in my journey and for people I work with. And I can see it. I'm not even guiding them in that direction. But if you look at a typical simplicity journey, and of course, it's a little different for everyone, but they might start out decluttering their closet or trying Project 333, getting rid of stuff like the surface level things that are actually so powerful because they in themselves take the person to the next step because they open up so much time and space where you can start then saying, what about the clutter that keeps me up at night, like worry? What about the clutter that impacts the communication in my relationships, like caring so much about what other people think about me? Those kind of things. So it really is this natural journey from, clutter in your home to maybe clutter on your calendar to clutter in your heart and your brain. And it becomes this big holistic health journey, both physical and mental health. I mean, I think there's going to come a day where we don't have to say both of those things
Yeah.
because it's all health, but it is really that. I've just seen it so many times where, for instance, in my membership program now, yes, we talk about decluttering, but on every call, there's also such a much bigger and deeper conversation about how simplicity is evolving in people's lives. And it's not just how many wooden spoons and pairs of socks do I have?
Well, and I mean, we've even seen with folks like Marie Kondo where, the idea of the life-changing magic of tidying up. And then she says, that my life has changed where I can't even adhere to that to the same degree. I think there was an article about that. But one thing you bring up, and it kind of sparked something in me, is we hear about time management a lot, right? Like, especially in my work, but space management. And when I don't mean space necessarily in the physical sense either. I like you're talking about, like, mental space, emotional space. Why don't we talk about that nearly as much as, say, time or task or any of that stuff? Because time and space they're connected. I wonder if there's something, have you thought about this? Like, in terms of that idea? Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I don't think that we think we have any control over that at first. And I think it's really scary to open up that kind of spaciousness because then you can really start hearing yourself and what you want out of your life and what you need to do to get there. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. But that can be scary to hear it because it means there's going to be some pretty major change in your life. And so instead, we keep ourselves really busy doing the things we know how to do, keeping everything really full so that we don't have to address the way that we can live the way we really want to live. And it's so easy to fall into that autopilot mode. And the first step is really creating that spaciousness so that you can listen, so that you can hear. So when your body is telling you slow down or rest or whatever it is, or I don't feel well, or this is too much. Usually we're just like, yeah, too much. That's the way the world works. Let's go. Too much. Give me some more. But if instead we allowed that spaciousness, we might discover that we really don't care about the too much or the more or trying to prove ourselves by how much we accomplish, and instead can really start asking the important questions of ourselves.
Courtney, I want to be respectful of your time and get to the conversation that we had a few years ago. I'm sure you'll listen to this episode too. Now you can say, hey, what did I say back then?
Yeah, I have no idea.
But the book that's coming out literally, this episode goes live. Oh, it's going live on Valentine's Day. So, people should fall in love with the book. That's what I'm hoping.
I hope they do.
What book is called Gentle, Rest More, Stress Less, and Live the Life You Actually Want. Where can people pick up the book and then keep up with the work that you're doing?
So they can find the book anywhere in all formats: audiobook, ebook, hardcover. And they can join me at bemorewithless.com or at bemorewithless on Instagram.
Courtney, thanks so much for taking the time to join for a quick update. And now let's get to the conversation that we had about Project 333. Here you go.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. It's, I'm feeling like this is going to be an interesting discussion because a lot of people will say, okay, Mike's not like a minimalist per se. And I think there's that perception about you as well, which we want to get to because we've talked before. You've got the book Soulful Simplicity, but I'm excited to talk to you about something I've done before, like something that most people wouldn't think that I've done before. And, I've discussed it before. It's your new book. I've actually done the thing in this book. And I'm looking forward to bringing it to everybody. It's Project 333, the minimalist fashion challenge that proves less really is so much more. That's your new book. And I'm excited that this thing's up because I've done this. Can you explain? And I know that everyone and their uncle has asked you, this before, but just for the edification of my audience, what in the world is Project 333?
I'm actually really excited that we're jumping into this right away because when my first book came out and in other interviews that I've done, we talk about other things, but this always comes up and we always want to go here. And now we don't have to talk about anything else if you don't want to. We can just talk about what people really want to talk about, which is Minimalist Fashion Challenge Project 333. And it's as the title suggests, a fashion challenge that I created in 2010 to get a handle on my closet and to really determine what enough means to me. And I'll just quickly tell you the rules and then let you ask me any questions you have. But very simply, the rules are to pick 33 items, including clothes, jewelry, accessories, and shoes for 3 months, and get everything else rounded up, boxed up, and hidden for that time period, so that all you're looking at for 3 months are the 33 items that you pick to live and play and work in.
So let's dive into this. One of the reasons that I was excited to talk to you about this is because my perception of this is that it's largely a challenge that is done by women, right? That's just the way I looked at it right out of the gate when I first came across this. I mean, we've known each other for years now, but I thought, like, I don't think this is not something that's like exclusive to women at all. But for me, it just seems to be. I think a lot of men, at least from my vantage point, would be like, I don't really need to do this sort of thing. But I gotta say, it's not exclusive. It's not something that's like, okay, women are the ones that are gonna do this. Guys don't need to. I mean, there's plenty of reasons that guys should do this kind of thing, right?
For sure. I mean, men, women, children from around the world have tried the challenge. I think people assume that women have more stuff in the closet than men. But I've heard from quite a few men that when they really actually counted, they were far above that 33 level and had some things to learn about what they really wanted and needed in their closets as well, and lives.
So yeah, and let's talk about that too, because it's not. I mean, people are like, okay, great, so my closet is clean, but what effect will that have beyond this? Beyond that. But there are farther reaching, kind of side effects and benefits of taking on a challenge like this, right?
Yeah, I suspect if it were just about an organized closet that it would have kind of faded out a long time ago, but this has been going on for 10 years now and
Hmm.
people are still coming to it brand new and redoing it and being really excited about it because again, it's not just about a clean closet or being organized. God knows I would have lost interest long ago because organization really isn't my thing, which is why having fewer items to choose from really serves me.
Right. Right. Well, decision fatigue is a huge role. Like I've talked about this before, where you go into I use this example a lot. You go to a Costco to buy ketchup. There's three sizes of ketchup, all one brand. Either you buy that brand. If you don't like that brand, you don't buy it, or you buy either the big tin, the small packets, or the 3-pack. If you don't want any of those, you don't buy ketchup. And what that does is then when you're walking down the book aisle of Costco and you see Courtney's book, you're like, I'll buy this book because your decision fatigue is not as great because you've not been forced to kind of look at the 43 different types of ketchup that you could have possibly picked up. Instead, you're limiting that, and I think that's one of the benefits of this too, right?
Of course, you're making me really happy I don't like ketchup. And I try to stay out of the cereal aisle as well because that's even worse. I mean,
Yes,
it's outrageous how
soda
the
pop,
choices
all
we
that
have.
stuff. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the idea. It's actually pretty funny when you think about it. It's a bit of a sidebar, but when people say if you want to eat healthy, go around the outer aisles of the grocery store, right? Go in the middle. The other reason is the middle it does have like, oh look, here's all these cookies. Oh well, which cookie should I have? Like your willpower just gets drained. You know me, I'm a big believer in willpower. What I have some questions about this though, because I think a lot of people, when they look at a system, they're like, oh, these rules seem hard and fast. Like, what if I'm a sports fan? Like as a guy, like I like girls too. Like I've got jerseys, right? Like that I wear only during those seasons, but I don't wear them any other time except for like when that team is playing, right? So there kind of subset rules or kind of hacks, for lack of a better term, that you could do to kind of make this work for you a little bit, if that's the kind of thing that you need?
There's actually a chapter in the book called Unruly, which is all about how to break the rules. I needed some really strict parameters when I started because my closet was so out of control and I was kind of, overspending on items that I didn't wear. I had things in my closet with price tags still hanging. So I needed something very clear. I only meant to do it for 3 months. I didn't think it was going to continue. I didn't know so many other people would be interested. But now that they are, and I see the way other people are modifying the rules to make it work for them, I think it's really important to consider not only for this challenge, but for everything in life. I mean,
Hmm.
so often we'll look at something and we'll think, oh, I could never do that. And we just throw it out. But if we were to modify it just a little bit by saying, well, I'm not going to count my sports jerseys, or for this first round, I'm not going to count jewelry, or because I work in a hospital, I'm only going to count my uniform as one item. Things like that, that you can make these small adjustments to make the challenge work and still experience the benefits is so important. And it gives you permission again to do that everywhere.
What are some of the, I mean, you mentioned in the book some of the success stories. I mean, that we go through some of them as you go through the book, but uh, what was one of the ones that you heard that, either that's in the book or that you came across that maybe didn't make the book that you're like, wow, that's really kind of something I didn't anticipate hearing from someone?
Well, after I did the challenge, there were some things that I did anticipate hearing from people, like my mornings are way easier. I'm experiencing less decision fatigue. I am enjoying getting dressed more than I used to when I had to pick through items that I didn't enjoy wearing. What I didn't anticipate and what I so love hearing is that people are suffering less from anxiety and depression.
Wow.
People are friendlier within their own families. They're noticing that just reducing the some of the anxiety in their life impacts their relationships, impacts how they feel on a day-to-day basis. People expressing that they have more confidence in not only trying other things, whether it be a challenge or just trying to figure out what's best for them instead of listening to all of the voices around them, but really trusting themselves to decide what's best for them. Um, but also just feeling better. I mean, this is something that I didn't anticipate because I was just looking at it in terms of closet and clothes. But I quickly realized it has very little to do with that. I mean, once you pick your 33 items, what you're doing is freeing yourself up to enjoy everything else in your life and not have to focus on something that you probably don't care that much about. I mean, I know some people do. Some people are very into fashion
Hmm.
and that is exciting for them. That's amazing. I'm very happy for them. But I think for the most part, we're spending our resources, our money, time, attention, and energy on things that we don't care about.
Right. Well, and one of the things that one of the byproducts of this for me was, you know, I I have, a set of rules that I, have applied. So I've done some unruliness to this to a degree. And actually it's interesting, like with any system, and I want to discuss this with you because I'm sure you've had this happen as well to a degree. And maybe not. I'm making some assumptions here, but we recently, like, I've gotten in better shape, and so some of the clothes that either didn't fit me before now fit, but also there have been new clothes brought into the mix because they fit me better. Like, there is, because I've been doing this for so long now, I would say, gosh, almost, I want to say almost 2 years. Like, there, the when something new comes in. So, for example, my brother-in-law just picked up a couple of merino wool, like nice long sleeve shirts, which are they fit me better. They feel nice. I'm trying to get away. I'm trying to dress more like an adult, I guess, when I do things as opposed to having these like Vision and Ant-Man t-shirts. Now I've got like these nicer clothes. By the time I'm 40, almost 46. But they came in and I'm looking at my closet and I just did like Project 333 a couple months ago because we shifted seasons. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, I now have these extra two items, and I'm getting this nervous energy around like, oh no, there's too many things here. That's not the purpose of this. I just want to I want people to hear coming from someone who's done it, and I'm adding something new. What do you do when you add something new and you're like, oh no, I have too many items. What do I do now?
I think it's different for everyone. I think we deserve to wear clothes that fit our bodies and our lifestyles. For me, because I've noticed such amazing results and because I'm kind of, sharing this as my experience, I stick pretty close to the rules. Uh, I would say actually 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Other than something like, so maybe it's not 100% because I'll break the rules in saying that I have a stack of bracelets that I count as one item.
Right.
Um, where if you were really going by the rules, you would count each individual bracelet. But in terms of clothes and bringing new clothes in, when I do, and I do it way less than I did for the first few years of this challenge when I was really trying to figure out what was best for me. Now that I know, I sort of just replace things. So if something does come in, it's generally replacing another item. And so I don't think in the past 10 years you would find more than 33 items in my wardrobe on any given 3 months. That's not to say that there's magic in that number 33, although it's incredible how often I'm walking and see the address 333 or see the time 333 when I look up. It seems to be everywhere.
Three's a magic number. They say it, right? Like, so there's three of them there. Three is a magic number.
Well, it's everywhere in my life, especially now with the new book. But for someone else, the number might be 37 because of where they live or what they do for work or what their lifestyle is like. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay.
I've been fortunate enough to have an advanced copy of this book to look at. And we're approaching the holiday season as we're recording this. There's two distinct times that you're going to talk about right now. It's the holiday season as I'm recording this. Gifts are coming in. What does that look like? How does someone, if they're doing this challenge and maybe not being super public about it, and yeah, let's say my brother-in-law bought me those 2 shirts, or somebody buys you a new, wearable or something like that. How would someone, when they look at that, and I know you're going to say it's probably again, it's how you decide to take it on, but can you give us some tips for people who are like, hey, oh my goodness, this person has picked up these gifts for me. Not only do I not want them necessarily because I'm trying to do this, but also like, where do they fit in?
Well, for starters, I think choosing what we wear on our bodies, what material is touching our skin, how we move through the world in our clothes is deeply personal. And for that reason, I'd like to suggest a new rule or maybe even an international law that adults stop buying adults clothing. Like, let's not do that to each other anymore because most of the time it's a fail. We don't really like what other people buy for us in terms of clothes, and we don't know what to do with it. And we feel compelled to even wear it because we know we're going to see that person and they're going to perhaps ask about that item of clothing. So let's just stop doing that to each other moving forward. But if you're in that situation now, I think, first of all, if you do talk about this challenge and you do talk about your interest in simplifying, that will help guide people in terms of what to get you for a gift. I think you can even be open about not wanting gifts at all if that is what you want. That doesn't necessarily stop the inflow completely, but you're welcome to talk about it and be open about it. And then if it keeps going or you get a gift that you don't want to keep, I think you're free to pass it on. I think that you can just donate it, return it, whatever feels okay to you without really worrying about any obligation you have to the gift giver, because I think we've even talked about this before. Like that gift exchange almost has nothing to do with the thing. It's really about the exchange itself and the connection and the intention behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, I don't remember any gifts that I got a year ago, for instance, and probably by a couple months after the holidays, you kind of forget who gave you what and where it came from, but you remember what you spent. And now you're left with these things that you might not want or need in your life. And I think you have to do what's best for you in that case.
And we have talked a little bit about this before when it comes to, and Joshua Becker, our friend Joshua, he put on Facebook not too long ago, actually, the idea of like when gifts come out, like give experiences, not things, right? Like my daughter's going to a Harry Styles concert as a result of her Christmas gift. She's going to remember that forever. She's not going to remember if I bought her a Harry Styles hoodie per se, right? that will just add up. Besides, she tends to steal both my wife and my clothes now anyway, now that she's a teenager. So maybe that's a rule that needs to be expanded upon is, okay, we need to have 33 items plus an additional 5 or 6 in case Grace steals them.
That you can rotate
Yeah,
amongst
exactly.
yourselves.
Exactly. The timing of the release of this book is spot on in a lot of ways because people are thinking about spring cleaning right now. So if somebody's going to sit back and say, hey, you know what? I'm picking up the book. It's time for me to get, to kind of clear the clutter and, embrace a bit more simplicity, not just in my closet, but in my life. I'm going to start my closet. Where do they begin? Like how do they make this work so that they have momentum? Because I know that it can be a multi-step process, but you have to give it the time and attention it deserves in order for it to really, really take hold.
I think it might be simpler than you think for the first 3 months at least, because I designed it so that you can experience simplicity without completely simplifying your life. And that just means that when you start this challenge and you find your 33 items, you don't have to get rid of everything. You don't have to figure out where to donate things, where to sell things, how to store things, nothing like that. Basically, all you're doing is creating this 33 item, capsule wardrobe, and then hiding everything else. So it just all goes in boxes and gets put under the bed or in your garage or in your attic or wherever you won't see it for 3 months. Because this really interesting thing happens when we separate from our stuff. We care about it way less. We're much less attached to it emotionally. I mean, it's shocking to me how much emotion is held in our clothes and our connection to that. And that's what makes it so hard to let go and make those decisions about what to do with it. But if you separate yourself from it for 3 months and revisit it after those 3 months, then you can make these decisions without like this really heavy weight about, oh, I spent too much on that. So and so gave this to me. I wear this because I want people to think of me as powerful or sexy or smart or whatever reason you're wearing your clothes. That separation really helps. So I say make it as simple as possible for yourself. And the book kind of walks through step by step in terms of how to make the right lists and pick the items without a lot of headache and heartache.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to touch on a couple more things before we wrap up. Depending on where you live, I think that it plays a role in the seasonal element of this. And for me, because I live in a part of the world that doesn't actually, contrary to popular belief, we don't really have, like spring, summer, fall, winter. It's more like spring, warmer spring, fall, colder fall. Like we don't get a lot of snow, but when the summer hits, it's not like it's going to be blazing hot either. I mean, for me, I only do this twice, maybe 3 times a year now because of that. I think that's something that people need to look at as well, right?
Definitely. And that's why it's important to really focus on those first 3 months as just those first 3 months.
Right.
And not worry about what's going to happen later, because afterwards you can kind of gauge, the weather situation. I live in a 4-season state. So there are things that I need that are different every season, although not like I don't swap out the entire 33 items. I might only swap out a couple of pieces or maybe half of them, depending on where we are during the year. But it's designed to accommodate weather shifts within those 3 months. So, for instance, I might start like this season that we're in now as we're recording for me is fall. And we started and it was really warm. And by the end in December, it's going to be really cold. It's actually really cold now.
Right.
But there's some things that I'll wear right in the beginning and right at the end and not in between at all.
Right. So almost like a mini, like for me, if I was going to stick strictly to the 3 element of the 33 items, you know, when spring shifts to summer, that would be maybe a marginal change, not as many things moving out. But if I'm moving from, say, summer to fall, that would be like more of a radical shift.
Right. Or if you live somewhere where it's the same temperature all year long, after the 3 months, you may decide on one wardrobe that works better, that is, has more than 33 items, but that you're not swapping wardrobes in and out of your closet.
Right. What about what about the idea of the sentimentality that some people have attached to certain items of clothing? So, for example, they know that maybe this piece of clothing, they love to wear it all the time, or but it doesn't really fit into they know in their heart of hearts that it's not something that they. I mean, we were talking about my t-shirts and stuff earlier. Like, there's certain shirts where I'm like, you know what? This is not really serving me anymore. I should probably, but I want to hold on to it. Like, what about that sentimentality? Which I know we've touched on before when we've chatted, but can we dive into that a little bit?
I mean, if you're loving it and wearing it every day, great. But if you just love it and you don't wear it, then take a picture of yourself in it and then let it go. I think then you can preserve the memory without having to deal with the actual thing and moving it around and thinking about it and giving it your attention. Chances are you're never going to look at that picture again, but it is a step to help you let go. With that emotional connection that we're talking about, I think more often than not, it goes in the other direction though. So it's not, oh, but I love this. It's more like that thing makes me sad, or that thing makes me feel guilty, or this thing makes me feel bad about myself. But we don't really register that until it's all out of the closet. And so meanwhile, every morning, we're just kind of picking the same thing over and over again, because honestly, even if you have 100 items in your closet, you are wearing the same few pieces over and over again. You may even be doing Project 333 for the most part already,
Right.
but you have to face all of those, I spent so much on that. Those
Mhm.
shoes hurt my feet. I wore this thing to a really sad occasion. Whatever it is, that stuff is weighing on you day after day after day. But when it's gone, you notice this lightness, and it's removing those items that trigger those negative emotions that aren't helpful. I mean, it's not like they're propelling you to be better or do better in any sense of the imagination. They're just making you feel a little crappy every day.
As we get close to wrapping up, I want to offer a suggestion. And you and I've talked about this part before, is people who are saying there's no way I can just get by on 33 items of clothing. There's zero way. Now, I'll share really quickly a tip that I learned a long time ago from Lifehacker, back when I really read Lifehacker. One of the things that they did was they suggested that when you want to see how often you're wearing clothes, because we have this mindset that goes, oh no, I wear that all the time, but often it's not true. So whenever I do this, I will hang my clothes up, but I'll put the open part of the hanger facing out. And then when I wear it for the first time, I flip it. So then the hanger, the solid part of the hook is now facing out. So then when I'm ready to do my next go round, I go, oh, wait a minute. These four things that I thought I wore, I didn't wear at all, because so I can avoid my brain tricking me into thinking that I wore these things, which has been really helpful when I've been doing this, because my brain says, oh no, I wear that. I wear that shirt a lot. And then it's like, no, yeah, I didn't wear it at all. So that helps me make decisions around Project 333. What are some other tips that you can kind of share with people to help them make these decisions and get past that bias of, oh no, there's no way I can get by on 33 articles of clothing?
Well, it's a challenge. So a challenge should make you think that I could
Hmm.
never do that, or this is going to be hard, or whatever it is that you're going to think. And this is, I think, part of the way that Project 333 goes way beyond clothes and hangers and fashion. When I think I could never do that, I think, oh my gosh, I'm onto something. Like my never statements, those always lead to something amazing. So now when I think of something or hear something, I think, oh, I could never do that. As soon as I hear the word never go through my mind, I just pause and kind of pull back and think, wait, but what would happen if I did do it?
Mm.
Like, nobody's grading you. So even if you do it imperfectly, and I hope you do, because there's no prize for doing this challenge perfectly, it just helps you be more open to things that can improve your life. So yeah, if you think you can't do it or you could never do it, it sounds like it's a great challenge for you.
Right. Absolutely. This is great, Courtney. I'm really excited that this book is coming out, because this is one of the things that whenever I've talked to people about, like, oh, how, like, are you a minimalist? Like, what do you think about minimalism? I'm like, I think there's really strong benefits to living a simpler life. And I said, this is honestly, this is the place I started, in terms of, adopting that. Project 333, the minimalist fashion challenge that proves less really is so much more. Where can people pick up the book, and where can people keep up with your work as well?
Well, hopefully you can find the book anywhere you'd like, at local bookstores or online. Definitely, if you're in one of the cities that I'm visiting throughout spring 2020, I hope that we can meet in real life and you can get a book there. And then to connect with me, either my website, bemorewithless.com, or Instagram at bemorewithless.
Courtney, thanks for joining me once again.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks to Courtney for joining me for that quick update, which I'm glad that we had a chance to chat about that because she's got a very busy schedule with Gentle coming out. By the way, you can pick up the book. The links are in the show notes. Of course, you go to mikevardy.com/podcast590. You can find all the show notes there. You can also do that wherever you are getting this podcast, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. If you're on Spotify, let me know in the comments for Spotify whether you've tried a capsule wardrobe project before, Project 333, what you think of the idea of Gentle. If you've picked up any of Courtney's works, just share that in the comments. That's the great thing about Spotify is they've got all that stuff there. Where you're getting this podcast right now is where you should subscribe to the podcast. That way you won't miss a single episode of what's to come, those Flashback Friday episodes like the one you just listened to. As well as our regular PM Talks series with my good friend Patrick Rohn, who is also a friend of Courtney's as well. We've actually spoken at the same event before, which is fantastic and, memorable. Also, we have those shiny new episodes every single week, which is what's coming up next week, a shiny new episode. So subscribe to the show. That's one way to support the show. Another is to check out the sponsors that you heard during the conversation today. Go to mikevardy.com/podcast sponsors. Click on any of the sponsors that resonate with you in that way. They know that we sent you there. That's it for this episode. Again, coming up next, a shiny new episode. I hope you will join me for that one. Until then, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of A Productive Conversation, reminding you to stop doing productive and start being productive. See you later.